So the death and dying process is quite simple when we understand that we are just energetic beings in our core. I mean, we have a physical body. We've been through all of that earlier in the session. So the energy that is our consciousness or our soul is what extracts itself and separates itself from the physical body. And I think one of the areas that most people are interested in, it's like, well, does the soul retain the personality that it has just incarnated into? And yes, it does. It does for a period of time, but then ultimately it goes back to its essence. So the soul doesn't automatically straight away recognize that it's back in the energetic. For some souls, it does happen very quickly, but for some souls, it actually takes quite a while. And that all depends on how ingrained the soul got with the physicality of its experience in this last incarnation. And for some people that, as they have lived their lives, are very addicted to physical sensations, alcohol, drugs, sex, all of those addictive type of personality traits, that has rubbed itself off onto the soul as well. So the soul is affected by all of those chemical ingestions or behaviors. And it may take some time for the soul to recognize that that was just an experience. So there are some souls that want to maintain a link to the physical until they get to remembering what they truly are. And they go through a period of recovery and all of those things. But so for some souls, it takes a little bit longer for them to go back to their higher selves and then determine what they're going to be doing. And for some souls, it's pretty immediate. So the process, as I understand it, based on many near-death experiences, based on a lot of channeling, and also based on that inner knowing, the process is a shift, a movement. Consciousness moves out of the physical. The energetic cord, or the silver cord that attaches our soul to our physical body, gets severed. And when that gets severed, that is at the point when the soul can no longer return to the body. So it's not like an NDE or a near-death experience. An NDE will never get to the point of the energetic cord being severed, because obviously that's the mechanism for pulling the soul back into the physical body. So once the energetic cord is severed, there is a process of the soul may be interested in seeing what is still occurring, particularly when they're very, very connected to their loved ones. So they may stick around for a little while, and they will be observing the process of how the family are going. They might want to try and connect with some family members to give them solace and let them know that they are still around. But for some souls, let's talk about a soul that has been through this process many, many times and what happens now. And for those, they basically understand what's happened and they travel directly back to the middle astral realm or the upper astral realm, primarily the middle to upper, where they are so aware of what has just occurred because they've done it thousands and thousands of times before, and you have too, and I have too. It's just the once the veil is gone, as I said, if some souls have been really engrossed in their physical experience here in the third density, they may take a little bit of time to remember completely what they are. But for the experienced ones and the ones that have this connection, they go directly back into the realm where they undergo a sort of like a reunion with their guides and their other soul family. And again, from what I understand, it is a very joyous occasion, and they then go through a life review. So the life review is undertaken pretty quickly after they get back, if they don't need to go for healing, if they don't need to be guided back into that state. But we're talking about souls now that have moved very quickly from the physical to the non-physical. So the life review is undertaken by the soul, but it is also includes the guides and the helpers that have helped the soul. So they look at how often did the incarnate soul actually listen to guidance? Did it achieve all of its particular milestones? What are some of the things that it missed? And the biggest area, I think, which is really the one that worries most people, is that there is an experience of feeling the emotions and feeling everything that every single person that interacted with that soul felt in relation to the soul. So that gives the soul and the higher self an understanding of how certain behaviors, how certain interactions affected the other person. So it's not just from the soul's point of view, it is from the other person's point of view. And that's where the learning takes place. So even though the intention of the soul may have been not to hurt the other person, the soul feels what that interaction felt like for the other person. And that is what we call evolutionary content for the higher self, to experience something that it hasn't experienced in any of its other incarnations. So once and I will just say now too, the soul or the life review is never about judging. It is about you in your energetic state to determine what you learned through that. It's not about other souls or other energetic beings judging you and berating you for doing certain things. You're the only one that has I guess a reaction to how you conducted yourself in this particular lifetime. So once the soul has gone through the life review process, what happens then? And that is when the soul and the higher self then look at what lessons were missed in this particular incarnation, but it goes a lot broader than that. So now we are looking at, and I say we, I'm imagining I'm with my higher self and I'm looking at the incarnation I've just had, but I'm also looking at every other incarnation or experience that I've had to determine what experiences I have not yet realized, I have not yet experienced in either the physical or the non-physical. So we then determine either I am going to come back into a physical incarnation in the third density, or I might want to do something completely different. And that is not up to any other energy being other than myself, in consultation though with my higher self, because that's part of me and my parallel selves and all of the other connections that I have around source. But it's all with a view of gaining more evolutionary content and expanding the experience for my higher self, myself in the higher state, and then ultimately source. So let's just assume I have decided I don't want to have another incarnation for a while. I've sort of had enough. I'm having back-to-back incarnations. I can totally choose a rest period. And that rest period can be, and I'm talking from linear time, thousands of years or whatever I determine. So there is nothing or nobody or no entity that is telling me I need to go and do this now. It is all up to what I want to do in my individuated state. Now, there's another couple of things that I could choose, and that is to not remain individuated. I can now also choose to commune back with my higher self. And what that would mean is that I would have a lot more expansive understanding of my consciousness would be absorbed or communed back to my higher self. So I would have experience of everything that the higher self has now experienced through the aspects it's projected into all of the different densities and dimensions. I can choose to do that, or I can choose to remain individuated and absorb as much knowledge. And I'm not like I am here. I am totally aware of all of my past experiences, and because some of those would have been on a much higher density or dimensional level, I am a lot more aware than what I am here. So the amount of knowledge and understanding that I get when I go back into the energetic, regardless of whether I commune back to my higher self or whether I remain individuated, I am, in comparison to where I am now, it's a completely different realm. It's a completely different experience, totally understanding that I am connected to everything and everyone. So now let's talk about souls that have been very, very much affected by the physical nature of an incarnation in the third density. And like I mentioned before, people that are very much attached to the physical sensations and have taken that to a level of becoming addicted to drugs, alcohol, and whatever else. Now, for those individuals, they need a little bit more assistance to have the soul become completely free of some of those chemical inputs, because the soul does get affected. So there's sort of two levels of that. So for some of the souls that really don't want to let go of the physical sensations, they will only really extract themselves and sort of try and remain as close as they can to the earthly realm. And that's what's called the lower astral. And the lower astral is where they can sort of sometimes gain the physical experience by being very, very close to somebody that has sort of left their body for a while, because they are too taking a lot of drugs, and the soul extracts itself from the body, the physical, and the other soul can excuse me, for a small period of time feel those physical sensations by entering that field. Now, that is ideally not what we want to have happen, and some of the souls that are even addicted to drugs and alcohol or any other physical sensations will go to the middle astral and be very much guided by the helpers and the guides to very quickly go into a healing process. So there is a light therapy that happens that basically takes all of those imprints of the physical sensations out of the soul, so the soul becomes pristine again. So there's two ways that can go, but ultimately, regardless of whether somebody ends up in the lower astral, they won't be there forever. They are there until they start sort of listening to the help that's available for them and slowly become more and more aware that this is not the state that they are intended to be in. So please, if you have had loved ones pass away from physical addictions. Please don't think that if they did end up in the lower astral that is going to be them for eternity. It is absolutely not that way. They may just be there for a little period of time until they recognize and hear that they have got help all around them. It's pretty similar to what it is like here in the physical. When we have loved ones that are completely and utterly addicted to physical sensations, it's very, very hard for the ones that love them to get through to them. They sort of have to do it on their own. Okay, so for those souls that then move into the middle astral, they also undergo a life review. Same process for all souls that come back from an incarnation. They have a life review process, and then they either go through another incarnation. They can go through a learning phase that they want to learn more. So if they enter into a 3D incarnation again, they may want to learn how they could possibly negate some of those lessons and challenges that they might have in front of themselves for the next lifetime. They look at all of their parallel lives. They look at what they want to achieve for the next lifetime, and the process is the same. Or they can choose not to reincarnate again for a long period or forever, or they can recommune back to their higher selves. But I will say, if there are any souls that have not undergone healing after one of those types of lifetimes, they're not allowed to recommune until they are fully cleansed. They are fully back to their pristine self, because the higher self obviously doesn't want any of those lower energetic values to be absorbed by it, because it's sitting a lot higher than what we are here. The other thing that I wanted to explain is that whatever the soul or whatever the personality expects to see at the point of complete separation is effectively what it will see. So for some people, it will be people with a religion, for example. They expect to see Jesus, they expect to see the heavenly gates, and if they are absolutely convinced that that is what they're going to see, they create that as part of their process of morphing back into the total energetic and total realization of what they truly are. For some people, they just want to see their loved ones, their animals, their maybe a beautiful little house up on the hill, or they want to recreate the home life that they have just left. That's absolutely what they will want to see, because we've learned already that it's the consciousness that creates the physicality or non-physicality, creates the experience. So whilst the soul is going back and still has a lot of the earthly attributes, it is creating exactly what it wants to create. Now, for some people that are going through a process of demise and they have a lot of regrets, they have a lot of fear, they have a lot of horror and like, what's going to happen next? I'm sure I'm going to see X, Y, and Z. Unfortunately, that is what they experience. It's not because it's true. It is what they are creating for themselves at that point of disconnecting from their soul, disconnecting from their physical body. So it is not as though there is a heaven or a hell or anything in between. There is only the experience of what we are assuming is going to happen at that point. And until there is that full re-cleansing and remembering of what we are when we're in the energetic, we are actually going to create that transitional phase by whatever we believe is going to happen at the point of disconnection.